Hi everyone, my name is Akaya James, and this is my final signature project. For my topic, I posed the question, if the U.S. insists on a carceral system, how do we improve the experience? Now let's define the problem. Firstly, people who are incarcerated long term often have a hard time adjusting to new technologies. People who are incarcerated often fill time with exercise. And people who are incarcerated have very limited access to nature. When we talk about technology, when you are incarcerated for 5, 10, or even 15 years, many things can change in that short period. It's 2021. In 2011, we didn't have the same kind of technology that we currently do on smartphones. We didn't have AI like Alexa or Echo. We weren't using streaming services. We weren't using social media to the same extent that we do now. The jobs process was, in part, technological, but these days, technology is integrated with the system so deeply that if you haven't experienced it in the past few years, you won't be able to navigate it. The way we communicate with people is so different than it was 10 years ago. If you have been incarcerated in that time, it will be hard to adjust. People who are incarcerated often fill their time with exercise in the yard using the equipment that is provided to them by the state. When exercise is one of your only forms of leisure, you should have the opportunity to have more varied exercise experiences. People who are incarcerated have very limited access to nature. Throughout the course, we've learned how important nature can be to mental health. I truly believe that if incarcerated people had more access to nature, they'd have better outcomes and better mental health in prison. So my intervention for the question that I posed is in 3 parts. The first part of my intervention would be to offer more technology courses. Currently in the state of Ohio, the state prisons do offer courses on how to do things like use the Microsoft Suite or to email. But I think it's equally important to learn how to navigate smartphones, how to use career-based services online, and also how to use your smartphone to communicate with the world around you, something that's very important when you're trying to reintegrate into society. The second part of my intervention would be to bring in trainers and have a revolving roster of exercise classes. Many incarcerated people use exercise to cope with the situation. I believe that it can be improved. In an Ohio State prison, you'll typically find different exercise machines and many rates for inmates to use to exercise. I believe they'll benefit by having a wider variety of equipment and also to bring in trainers and have a revolving roster of exercise courses. I'm thinking of programs already in place, like Hiram's own Writers in Residence, where they facilitate creative writing workshops for incarcerated people, or the programs where churches go into prisons and talk with inmates. I think a similar thing can be done with exercise courses. The final part of my intervention would be to allow nature excursions. Many medium and low security prisons allow inmates to take half days for things like work or things that will help them reintegrate into society. I think something interesting and really helpful would be to take them into nature. Many prisons are in rural areas, but all inmates see are gates and concrete. And in city jails, all they see out of their little windows is the next street over. I think the best way to implement my interventions would be to start as a trial run at a state-level institution and then lobby for it to be implemented statewide. For my interview, I have consulted my incarcerated uncle, Gerald James, who has been in prison at Grafton Correctional Institute since 2002. I chose to interview my uncle because he would have the most insight on his needs as a long-term incarcerated individual. I will now insert my interview. Okay, Uncle, thank you for doing this for me. I know that we do not have a ton of time, but yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to follow me. So I'm gonna just say everything I want to ask you. I want to ask you about like your experiences with technology while you've been in, and I want to ask about nature. Like you've never been a person into nature from what I remember, but like I want to ask about nature, um, and if you think it'll benefit you, and what do you think about nature, and what have been your experiences while you've been in. And I want to ask you about working out and exercising. I'm working on some interventions or things that I think would be helpful for you and y'all inside. So like um, offering exercise classes or doing excursions and half days because I know like y'all are lower security and going out into the community to spend some time in nature and also spending more time like doing tech classes. Like I know you're taking that class where you gotta use Excel, that business course, but like classes to help you learn how to use like your phone and stuff for when you get out. So what do you think about that?
Hard to think about how things have changed. I got a tablet, and I'm not gonna lie, it's hard for me to adjust.
Yeah.
We didn't have stuff like this when I was out.
Yeah, because last time you was out was 2002.
I miss nature and
Really?
being outside. I could see trees where we are.
Yeah, because Grafton kind of rural.
I don't think about it as much because I worry about my family, like you and Jada and my wife.
And then, like, before we run out of time, that last part about the exercise.
I mean, I exercise a lot. I never thought about taking classes. That's a good idea, Niecy.
So, yeah, that's what my uncle was able to answer for me before our time ran out. But, I really appreciate his insight because he has been in prison for a really long time. Um, but yeah, that's the end of my project. Um, my uncle didn't give me a ton of feedback on my thoughts, but I feel confident that if at some point in time these things were to be like really taken there, I think that I could be successful in administering my interventions. Thank you.